Okay, now we're live. All right, everyone. Hi, I'm Dr. Bronce Rice. I write the well-being equation. I'm here with Deborah Jean Weitzman, tell me what's your Substack's entitled. What's the name of your
Set
Substack?
your voice, set your voice free.
Set Your Voice Free. Nice,
Set your
nice,
voice
uh,
free. Yeah.
nice. And so we're going to talk about a bit about self-love, courage, and finding your voice. And so I'll just mention a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit more about
Uh,
yourself and your Substack then. So I'm a psychologist, psychoanalyst. My Substack is called The Wellbeing Equation. And kind of what I try to do is talk with individuals about kind of human dynamics and kind of what kind of goes into, I guess, health and wellness or one's well-being, and how do you bring that into existence? How do you think about it? And how do you kind of keep it moving? So that's a little bit about who I am and what my Substack's about. So maybe tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're at in life, and a little bit more about your Substack.
well, we discovered earlier that, we grew up, if you grew up in Connecticut,
Yeah.
I grew up in New York City and, I, even as a kid, I grew up in Queens, in a very
Mm.
nothing special town, and I remember as a kid sitting on the curb, and there weren't even that many cars in that time. We were
Mm.
mostly kids on bicycles and just thinking about the world. I was very curious, like what's out there. You know,
Mm.
my parents, were first generation Americans. My grandparents came from somewhere else, and my grandfather always would go to the village, and we had
Ah,
no village in Queens. It's like
okay.
this village is my grandfather going to.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always had this fantasy of like somewhere there's my village.
Mm.
So, at a pretty young age, I became a kind of lusting after travel, but I was a poor kid. So really, we only went like upstate New York in a leaky pup tent. It
Yeah,
wasn't like big
yeah,
travel, and so I don't, anyway, I had this idea, and then later on, I became a singer-songwriter. And I left New York, lived for a while in Ann Arbor, then I moved to
yeah.
California. Yeah, I lived for a
Oh,
while in San
okay.
Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have lived in California. My brother lives there now with his wife and kids, and I did some training at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Yeah,
So
I lived there.
I lived just outside of Ann Arbor, very small little town called Northville, and most people wouldn't know about it. But I spent a decent amount of time in Ann Arbor doing some training. And then from there, when I left University of Michigan, it's what got me to Yale and New Haven.
Yeah.
I've kind of stuck around, and so I moved around a decent amount um, in the United States and traveled a little bit internationally, but not what you're doing. Like you were in New
Yeah,
York,
but,
and then you moved,
I
and
was
now you
over.
live.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
was shoved out. I lived in San Francisco, and then I already had discovered the Alexander technique actually in Ann Arbor. And
Ah,
as a
okay.
frightened, I think I told you about being very shy. So that's
Uh-huh,
why I
uh-huh.
write about, I was very, very like, I mean, now they have all these words for it. But when I was a kid, I just wanted to hide in the closet. But then I
Mm,
also
mm,
wanted to
mm,
be a
mm, mm.
singer. So it was always this dichotomy of
Yes.
like, nobody look at me, please look at me. Don't look at me, please look at me.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
Alexander technique, I don't know if you know this word.
I know. I was going to
Very,
ask you I was going to say,
yeah.
I know just about this much about it. And so I thought, hey, tell me a little bit more, but tell everybody else.
Well, I
They don't.
write sometimes about it, but the algorithm doesn't recognize it, so I don't get as many. You know, I
Okay.
have to train the algorithm to learn a little bit more. I'm a little bit
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
In
Yeah,
any
if you
case,
get that logarithm down, let me know. I want to know. Yeah,
I gotta take it up for coffee and introduce it, to other things. Anyway, so the Alexander technique is one of the older works. A lot of works came from it, but it's very good. Like a shy person,
yeah.
wants to hide. And If you hide, you close in. If you close
Mm,
in, you don't have any room to resonate and find your voice, which is, we're going to talk about the novel and very
yes.
much I have always my characters kind of go through a journey like I did to
Yeah.
come out of our hiding and how,
Yeah,
if you like sometimes I have a student, they say, I can't just come out of my hiding and go, here I am, because that's
mhm.
way too much. But if we're
Yeah.
in the energetic flow, if we're in almost like the magic of sound happening and we
Mm.
get lost in that, it no longer becomes about me showing up and do they love me, but me lost in the music and loving it so much that
Ah,
I can't hold it back.
interesting. One of the things that I do is kind of specialize in the mind in conflict. And so you point out one, right, that's kind of common in terms of, oh, I want to be unto myself. I'm shy. I don't want to put myself out there. And yet, maybe I do want to put myself out there. Maybe I want to connect up with my voice. And, you know, then I kind of help people understand, well, what do you do with that conflict? Like how you've been living with that conflict, right?
Right, right,
And one thing you point to interestingly is that to kind of work with or get beyond some of the conflict is to connect up with the energy and the music. So if you focus there and get in tune with that, I suppose would be one way to say it. I guess it might shut out momentarily, or at some point the voices in my
the
head that kind of
the fear
say,
voice,
yeah,
right, right,
yeah.
right.
Interesting,
We're
interesting.
it's like, I also studied acting and you know, many actors are very shy. So you get lost in the fourth wall. So you're not looking at the audience. You,
Uh
you
huh.
you're living you're living in another sphere, but you're living. So
Yeah.
yeah, so these things are very important to me. But just to finish the story, so I was living in San Francisco. I finished it. I was an Alexander teacher. I actually had really a lot of work, doing gigs. I had this class called Acting for Non-Actors. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. And I was really full in it. And the 1989 earthquake came.
Mm,
And
mm,
you hear
mm.
about people who die and you hear
Mm,
about buildings that are destroyed. You don't hear about artists. You lose everything,
mm.
you know, because for about 8 months after the earthquake, nobody did anything extra. Everybody, we were really terrified. So you went to your job and you came home. My job was giving people Alexander and voice lessons and doing concerts. Everything stopped. So,
Okay.
and we know our very generous country wouldn't have given artists like, oh, you're starving to death. Okay, here's some money. So I
Yeah.
had just made a new recording and the guitar player had a list. He was from Italy. He had a
Uh,
list of agents in Europe. And he said, see what happens. So I sent out this list and I got picked up by an agent in Wales and
ah,
I moved to Europe. I moved.
wow.
It started as a tour and then it expanded and then yeah, then I moved to Europe. So I've been
Wow.
living
Okay.
in Europe since after the earthquake, 1990.
Okay. Interesting.
So
And
I have,
so,
this
yeah.
this book that that we also met on this, so I have her walking because I also love to walk. And, in my years of being in Europe and singing everywhere, this area where this book takes place, the Cinque Terre, it's so beautiful to walk there.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what, I mean, I love the novel.
Mm.
I mean, just so the main character's name's Joanna. And my sense is that it's something to do with kind of her journey about kind of, sure, there's reclaiming aspects of herself. There's grief and loss. I mean, she loses someone important to her. I don't want to go into it too much, but enough to pique people's interest because I think I loved it, and so I would suggest anybody who wants a really good read in terms of complexity about life, loss, love, repetition, renewal. Get Give yourself another try at something that's important in life.
Mhm.
It's in the book,
Mhm.
and so
Thank you.
I think it was well worth it. So Joanna's kind of travels back, I guess, to Italy is what it sounds like. Is that right?
Yeah,
To a place where that
yeah.
she had been when she was younger. Um,
She actually wasn't ever there. The place
uh,
in the Cinque Terre, she only, well, I don't want to
yeah,
give the
yeah, yeah,
story, but it was more her
yeah,
own
yeah.
fantasy of Italy,
Oh, yeah.
in
Oh,
I don't I
as she's
again,
on the
this is a bit of a mystery. Right,
as
right.
she's on the ship.
Yeah, she imagines it, right, when she meets this Luca at the beginning. That happens
What?
pretty much.
So she meets it. So she meets someone who's
And then
Italian.
she has a big fantasy about
Yeah.
Italy.
Oh, and then she. Well,
So
okay,
she comes there
that's
later.
interesting. Late,
Yeah,
yes, that's
so
what I'm getting.
it's later. And that actually someone
Even that's interesting because
Mhm.
the way I read it, in some ways, looking at her memory,
Right, right.
yeah, that's interesting.
I mean,
Yeah,
oh, you know, I'm in my golden years now.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
still I'm working with this issue of fantasy versus reality.
Oh
I
no,
mean, there are some scenes in the story when she sits with the therapist and the
yeah,
therapist says, "Be
yeah.
realistic," and she
Oh yeah.
doesn't want to be.
No,
And that
no,
is a lot
and she gets
from
mad.
my own life.
Yeah, yeah, no, no,
Like, no, no.
and she gets mad, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you had
And
kind
this
of
was
what?
always like a theme when I was growing up with,
Yeah,
I have heard different, some of me, but it's really different. I did make it a lot of it up, most of it up. Um, but this theme, my parents were, immigrant kids. They were very
yeah.
poor, and they wanted to, not be poor anymore. That was the most
Mm.
important thing. And then there's me wanting to be a singer, and my parents were like terrified. They had been already divorced, but oh gosh, our daughter's going to starve to death. She has to be like
Starving
a
artist,
lawyer or a doctor
starving
or a
artist.
dentist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
She can't be just like wandering the streets.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Be
yeah.
realistic. You have to be
Yeah.
realistic.
Yes, yes,
That
yes,
was
yes.
always,
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, no, and so there's
and
but
no, I want to say, and yet
yeah,
now, as the other theme of this month, like really coming more into a loving relationship with myself. For those of you
yes,
out there, I have to
yeah.
say this is a long-term project. I'm
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah,
getting a
yeah, yeah.
little hint of it, but there is a piece of what really is reality, and can
Oh,
I
yeah.
let go of some of the parts that I carry that torment me, that don't serve me? And that's what I'm a little bit working with now,
No, that's
if that
great
makes
because
sense.
it does. No, it makes perfect sense because that has elements of the mind in conflict.
Yeah.
In there, right? In the fantasy, it's like so the fantasy is there to kind of present something in terms of that we say we want, and
Oh,
that's
we
always
get
an
like a
interesting
peak of
thing.
magic. We get a peak of
Yeah, yeah,
magic, but then
absolutely. And so it's always interesting, if someone actually gets elements of what they say they want. I'm always interested in terms of, all right, well, let's look at what that was like. And, because if I meet someone long enough, I understand something about the fantasy
Mhm.
and what's adaptive about it, and what could be, depending, elements that might be maladaptive to their transitioning to something else in life that probably would help them. Right? And
Mhm.
so the fantasy is really interesting, right? Because it has an adaptive quality and it has a potential to not be adaptive if it doesn't kind of meet up with reality. And so to be able to kind of wrap your mind around that and work it out, it's very difficult in life. And that, I mean, so what I will say is how you end that book in the Sinking of the Leonardo da Vinci
For those
with Joanna.
listening, we're talking about my new
Oh,
novel.
it's, I mean, yeah, I mean, you kind of hit upon a really good solution to the fantasy piece.
Yeah.
You could see if you read it, you can see she's wrestling with that very piece, and she moves. to various different people back and forth. But she's always thinking about, well, what does she need? What does she want? And trying not to get pulled in too much about what somebody else wants. It's
Yeah,
very interesting in terms of what you do in that book. To me,
you
when I read it, it's like, man, that's a good therapy right there. Was what you've written about, and it was from
know,
my book.
yeah.
It's very
I mean,
nice.
I need a lot of help in the world, so I actually
Mhm,
do
mhm, mhm.
therapy, and I go to a 12-step program, and
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
write, so
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah.
for me some of these issues. I was really young. I had really difficult parents who had difficult parents who had difficult parents. So we
Yeah.
had those wrong chains and a lot of abuse, a lot of like we say the word trauma. Yes, love was always twisted and very manipulated, and you know, I w- I was very sensitive, and then you try so hard to please. You're trying always, and it's exhausting, and you never get that love.
Yeah.
You just don't, and I didn't. I wasn't lucky. I mean, my dog loved me. I did have my object of
Mhm.
affection was my grandfather
Yes,
and my
yes,
dog.
yes,
I
yes.
mean, we need
Ah,
we need some object of affection.
gotta have something. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Absolutely.
so,
No, I
I
mean,
met
yeah,
I met my husband, and, you know, I I was still holding on to an old love in my own life.
yes,
I was. And I
yes, yes.
and I felt like, I kind of used some of my husband in the character of Stuart and also
Oh,
in the
oh,
character of
yeah, yeah,
Peter,
yeah, okay.
the one the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
historian,
yes, yeah, yes, yes, yes,
and
yes,
my
yes.
husband works with climate change, so there's that theme. But
Ah, ah,
I
ah,
have to
ah,
say,
ah.
writing this book brought
Yeah.
me closer to my husband. It really did.
Oh man, that's so nice because then one of the things then, right, is you're writing about kind of things that you know about. You get to play with them a little bit. So it's
Right,
not exactly that, but you get to play with
right,
elements. And as you play with the fantasy that you mentioned earlier, right, in the book, through the book, right, the characters and whatnot, with parts of
right,
yourself,
right,
you then get a chance to sounds like see if you can't live something out differently in relation to yourself, but also in relation to your husband. Then,
right, right.
right?
I, I don't know if this is going to be a bit too risque. Can I dare be a bit risque?
I would appreciate it's Friday. It's been a long week. You know what I mean?
Friday the 13th, close
Yeah,
to
exactly. Friday the
completion.
13th. What could
Can
go
we be a
wrong?
little
What
risque?
Friday the 13th? What could go wrong?
So as a very shy, nervy singer-songwriter, I would often be on tour, and it wasn't like I went for the whole show, let's say. But if I had even a bit of a flirt with somebody, like before the show, it
Yes.
would get like the erotic juices going,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
would
yeah, yeah,
always
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sing better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, 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 yes,
So I
yes.
don't know if you found that thread in the book too, where this thing where Joanna felt like she needed, that
Yeah, yeah,
love
yeah.
thing to be able to sing because she really wanted to find her voice, and
Well,
that,
yeah, it's very interesting as far as the beginning of the book, right? She meets up when she's young,
right,
and she meets a young male, and there's a love interest, right? And as you kind of convey in the book, she somehow is able to connect up with her voice in relation to that
with that,
love.
with the erotic
Oh, yeah,
charge,
yeah, yeah,
like
right.
this,
And then
yeah,
later on, as she's older and goes through more experiences and heartbreak and grief and loss, right? She's wrestling with that piece in terms of I'm shy. I don't want to, but I want to. Like why don't I sing? How do I do that? And as you hit upon, um, how do you kind of connect up? I guess like take with the Alexander technique. I don't know much about it other than what you've said, right, and read a little bit, but yeah, the force, what juice, whatever that is, right, that life force. How do you connect up with it and get at least periodically beyond shutting yourself down? It's an interesting thing, right? So, so,
yeah,
so, so I think it,
yeah,
I think it becomes clear as the novel progresses that Joanna's wrestling with that very piece. How does she connect up with something, and does it connect? Can it come from her? Does it need to be in relation to someone else who she's got an erotic attraction
right.
to.
And
Yeah,
we're not going to tell the end, but of course
yeah,
it
yeah,
comes to
I don't want to. I mean,
another place.
the ending, to me, the ending was, you know, what I mean, it was
Yeah.
a very nice ending. I mean, just yeah, it tells me you've done a lot of work to
I'm not a
understand
fast
that.
writer. I
You
didn't
know, what I
read
mean,
very
I'm not saying that you would continue to
yeah.
work and whatnot. You know, there's always stuff
No,
in
but
life, right?
12 years I worked on the novel. 12 years.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just mean to be able to put on paper and think through and think out what would it take so that we aren't, you know, because human nature, right? We are creatures of repetition and habit,
Right.
and we do not have a choice to repeat. The question becomes,
Well, that's really what the Alexander work does, to get into that deep unconscious
right?
where those patterns are
Yep.
and try to seduce into another pattern.
Well, yes, and so then it's kind of like, well, through the Alexander technique, that sounds like, right? Get in touch with
And
the
you do it with therapy, I think, right?
yeah, yeah,
With
no question.
therapy.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, unconscious
Yeah.
is definitely what I work with. That mind in conflict and the unconscious are two out of my top three. And yeah, you know, because so it's like, yeah, you're going to repeat, and you're going to repeat aspects of childhood. We don't have a choice. It's built into our cellular DNA. But the question becomes, are you going to be able to understand that enough and work, you know, in various different ways, the mind, body, spirit, so that we repeat elements from a more conscious basis. Now, there are some individuals who seem to not be able to repeat new revolutions, new patterns, but sometimes you can at least understand why you're doing what you're doing, so you know more about why. I mean, that can be helpful, no question.
Yeah.
But I get what you do at the end of that book is you show to me what a possibility of something much more healthy than just pure repetition from a childhood perspective.
Yeah.
It allows for something.
It's like a new breakthrough,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
new
Well,
yeah, yeah,
so what you've done in my mind is you've taken something old for Joanna and you've managed to weave it into something new. So in my mind you've created new life,
hmm,
and even the piece that what happened to her with that first love
yeah.
in terms of what she lost. You even come back through if you look at it in the way that I'm talking about, it's like she does something different there as well. Anyway, so in a sense, I think you've done a lot of work just in general in life. I mean, to be able
Yeah.
to understand that, right, and put that into existence, it's quite something. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, oh, when I was really young, somebody read my palm and said I
yeah,
was gonna be dead at 24. And I
24,
didn't.
right?
I didn't die at 24. And when I got to 24 and I was like, "Oh no, what's gonna happen now? I'm not gonna die." And now that I'm, much older and I see that I really needed time. I mean, it takes time, or at least for some of us, to
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
learn and really come deep. And, we see it
yeah,
I don't want to go too much into politics, but we certainly see it
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
politics that
Yeah.
things repeat. The shadow is like wanting our attention. We don't want to look at the shadow. We'd rather have,
Yes. Yeah.
lies and different kind of,
Yeah, yeah,
rather
yeah,
than
yeah, yeah.
really see what are we not looking at? What
Mm.
are we not looking at?
Yes. And
Yeah.
what yeah, and why are we not looking there? And what's the
So
cost? Absolutely.
yeah,
No,
I mean, even
absolutely.
this, I see that there's another woman who's on Substack, Tammy, who's been really
Oh, yeah, yeah.
wonderful and helpful,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
we've connected. And because I'm so shy, I was even shy to come and meet with you. Now that I'm here with you, that's what happens. I'm in it with you. I'm looking at you. I want to know you. I want to like taste
Yeah.
some of your brain.
Yeah.
So I'm not thinking about me
Yes.
anymore. I'm not so afraid anymore.
Yeah, yes.
And so
Yeah,
she
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
giving me a little, reminder, calm your 3-year-old. She's just frightened. Love
Yeah, yeah,
her,
yeah, yeah.
be with her. And so I spent a little time before because it's 8 p.m. here, it's now almost
Oh,
8:30
yes.
here in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
city.
no. I
So I had
remember
I
kinda
had a
telling you. Yeah.
long day to wait for our talk. So I went
Yes,
for a
yes, yes,
walk and
yes.
I did some other
Ah,
writing, and then I was doing some dancing, and my 3-year-old loves to dance. She really loves to dance. So we were dancing around this little apartment
nice.
here.
Nice. Nice, 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 nice. So maybe that's a question in relation to the topic that I would kind of ask, and you've explained a little bit of it already, but your understanding maybe about how people who are shy, let's say, right, who maybe want to do something and don't want to do something, or at least fearful of what the outcome could be. So, to tell me more about how you've managed to help other people or yourself, say with the courage and helping them find their voice. That I do think it's
Well,
so important.
I,
Good.
the most important thing is to think it's baby steps.
Okay. Okay.
Baby steps. We don't have to show up all the way because, the fear is that we're very vulnerable. We're going to be
Yes. Yes.
caught with
Yes.
our pants down and we're just going to die in shame. And
Mm,
I'm really, I can say I'm a shame survivor. I'm an anxiety, I've worked through so much anxiety. I'm doing great. I don't have panic attacks like I did when I was younger. So I've made huge progress, but
yes. Yes.
still
Yes.
there's, we don't, I just, hey, we're still some of our patterns. We don't
Oh yeah.
100% change and nor should we.
No.
Like my husband, my darling husband, he's always like, don't change too much. I love you. I'm kind of goofy and awkward and, a bit nervy and,
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yes.
and you said, because if you're going to have to become perfect, then I have to be perfect and
Ah,
that's going to be
God
really
for
boring. No,
God
no
forbid,
purpose.
right? God forbid.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so
So,
interesting,
so,
right? Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So, for all of us shy beings, it's like almost like a little bit distracting ourselves. Sometimes when I have a
Yeah.
new student,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think of like a little child who's going to, a daycare or nursery for the first time and doesn't want to leave the mother or
Yeah.
the caretaker, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and the person in this daycare, if they're well trained, will a little bit ignite this young person with
Yeah.
something colorful, or maybe there's
Ah,
something to
ah.
play with. So there's
Oh yes. Yes.
something
Yes.
we
Yes.
get
Yes.
curious. We get
Yes.
curious about something.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
that's a
Yes.
very important key. Can I move away from fear, fear, fear? And to, oh, I'm a bit curious.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
as soon as we
Yes. Yes.
started, I'm curious to actually meet with you. So my curiosity can
Yes.
override the fear of being fooled,
Yeah.
right?
Nice.
You
Nice. Nice.
know, and like all things, it's a practice, right? We're
Yes.
practicing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're practicing showing up. We're practicing having a little more room in our
Yeah.
literally between our bones and the fascia. And if you smell really something yummy food, you're having
Ah,
and if you really are hungry, you're like that
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
can resonate also in your back, under your
yeah.
armpits, all the way down. It can be very
Mm.
movable.
Yeah, no,
So
yeah,
bit by bit we get into this, what is anyway singing? It's moving vibration,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, 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 yeah,
If we think, oh my God, I have to sing, I have to sing great, I have to,
uh-huh,
people will pay to see me.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
get we get all, but I'm just moving vibration. Mm. I mean, little kids love it. They love to make little
yeah,
sounds.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
innate
yeah.
in us,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, and that's a great point that, hey, we still have parts of ourselves that are very kind of childlike and in a very playful, important, curious kind of way that can kind of help us if we figure out how to kind of connect up with it and find our voice, some of which we may have developed when we were children,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
which we're not always I don't think our society does the greatest job of teaching us how to kind of hang on to those
No,
parts of
and
ourselves,
you know,
right?
again, if anyone wants to follow my Substack, because I'm still so curious about this, still with my own growing and the
Yeah.
students I work with, and the themes that I write about, and for this coming week, my Substack is going to be also a little bit about this theme of singing, actually.
Okay. Okay.
I had found this piece that I wrote a while ago. When I was quite young, I escaped. I left New York. There was one of those times when they were having very cheap tickets to go abroad,
Uh,
and
uh,
I had my guitar, and my parents didn't want me to go. Again, they were long divorced, and we had no extra money. I think I had like $50 with traveler's checks,
yes. Yes. Yeah.
one way ticket.
Yeah.
And and this was in the 70s, and we travelers would go to the American Express office, and
Yes.
somebody
Yes.
would be
Yes. I've done
having
it.
like
Yeah.
a Volkswagen bus and looking for people heading to Paris, shared
Okay.
gas. So you
Yeah.
travel that way. And then I would just sing on a corner. I mean, now, of course, we have so many people busking. In
Yeah.
those days, there
Yeah.
weren't that many people busking. And
Uh,
I would take my guitar, and I mean, in those days, I had long black hair. I
yeah.
kind of looked like Joan Baez. I sounded like
Yeah.
Joan
Yeah.
Baez. And I got a lot of money very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No. 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 But there's a way, right? That something meant enough for you to put yourself out there
Yeah,
and
well,
continue to
sometimes I was
practice.
starving. I was hungry and I had to get
Well,
food.
all right. Hey. Well,
I
fair
I
enough.
didn't I
All right.
didn't
All right. Yeah.
innocently,
Well, you. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I lived on McDougal Street, and I had an aunt who had a jewelry store where supposedly Bob Dylan also used to sing. And she let me sing in front, and I would earn my
Nice.
rent singing
Yeah.
with my guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I had the motivation of hunger,
Yeah. You
and
sing for your supper then. Yeah. Yeah.
I really had to sing for my supper. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then again, there would be fear, but then, it was anyway easier in those days. There wasn't everybody, now we're so loaded that in a
Uh,
way it's a little more, there's so much more competition. But in those days, there weren't that many people who had a guitar, who sang, who made up songs. So people would always gather, and then soon as people were listening, really listening, there's also something for shy people. Then you're communicating.
mhm.
So that's another tip for anyone who's shy, is that we go past worrying if we're singing well or not, and we go to that. But anyway, back to my subject, sorry.
That's
So
right.
I went to Verbier, to Switzerland, when I went on this trip to work as a ski bum, and I
Yeah.
worked as a singer in some restaurants. And there was a very, very good skier who came to hear me sing, and he said, "Well, maybe we can do an exchange. You teach me to sing, and
Ah.
I will teach you how to ski," because I wasn't a very good skier.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Anyway, I write about this in my Substack, so I don't want to give it all away. But it
Okay.
was really fun to write about it, because he was really not any kind of natural singer. He was
Oh.
probably the worst person I've ever helped sing. I mean,
Okay.
I
Oh,
thought he
yeah.
was faking it when he
Yeah. Yeah.
sang.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was like a bunch of cats strangling each other,
Well,
but I got him singing better.
nice. Nice. Nice.
It,
Yes. No, it's an
it,
interesting thing in terms of the fear, right? Like on my end, like I've written, a book called The Well-Being Equation, and so I'm trying to get it out there, and so it's kind of what brought me to Substack, right? And I'm looking around, and back when I started, like doing lives, where it was like, oh, everyone's got to do a live, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that, But somebody asked me, would you like to be on their live, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Um,
mhm.
but what Substack has done in terms of my own being shy it's kind of like I now understand to want something and be anxious about what I want. And so that kind of mixture of wanting, longing, trepidation, anxiety, fear, like it kind of mixes up and it probably has a dance in and of itself. But I've kind of understood, oh, well, certain things, maybe I don't get one without the other. I'm not saying it's universal necessarily, but I imagine with certain people,
What do you
people
mean
can
the
kind of
one
call
without
up.
the other? What do you
For
mean?
me, what has been interesting, but within my Substack journey, right, is I've enjoyed it and I've not enjoyed it. In what we're doing now, right, to put ourselves out there to talk and whatever else. Like I don't do this for a living, so to speak, right? I mean, people come to see me, and we may talk about these kind of topics in kind of an intimate way, but it's done behind kind of closed doors. People can say whatever they want to me, and legally, I can't take that anywhere. I like what I do, and so I don't want my license taken away from me. So I gotta kind of keep it private. Um, I can ask questions and whatnot, but I was trained to not share a whole lot about myself, right? And so what Substack has required is, no, you need to go out and at least talk something about yourself. You need to give people something. And so it's like, oh, I'm gonna go put myself out there into the limelight. And I'm like, I don't really want to. Right. I don't have to. It's like, yeah, well, you don't have to, but maybe you don't get your book out then. Yeah, and so it's kind of I mean,
Oh,
there are other ways of looking at it. Uh,
I can feel that really resonating in my
yeah,
body as
yeah,
you oh boy,
yeah.
for sure.
And so other ways of looking at it, but a question that I've asked myself, or I think that the book has asked me, so to speak, do I want it bad enough? And am I willing to kind of go through some frustration, anxiety, and keep at something? And does it mean enough for you to follow through? I don't think I understood that at a younger age the way I do now.
Mm,
The
yeah.
importance of putting yourself out there, following through, even if it doesn't, even if I never put that book out,
Mhm.
it's still going to be worth it to go after some of my dreams and desires.
Absolutely. I mean,
Right.
like, we've been speaking about this novel when,
Yeah.
you know, just when, because of my shyness,
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
February, the book came out in July, and February we were starting the editing with the publisher.
Yes. Yes.
I,
Yes.
I went skiing in Norway and I was so anxious,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
fell and broke my arm.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
didn't know each other last year. I
Yeah. Yeah.
wasn't really, I just not on Substack yet. And in fact, my first Substacks were about my broken arm. So
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
editing with one hand, and so I really was faced with a lot of my fears that I thought I had worked through. I'm
Yes. 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 Yes.
long-term sober. I'm in the program for a long, long time. I had an eating disorder when I was young. I've worked that out 45 years
Mhm,
ago. So
mhm,
I'm like,
mhm, mhm,
I'm
mhm.
sitting pretty here. I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
it comes to something that's going to expose me, whoa, the
Yeah.
thermometer really went up with fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I started thinking, okay, this book, even if I don't become like any kind of bestseller, it's been a teacher. I've
Oh.
been learning so much from showing up or doing an interview or,
Yes.
I did a thing, this Radio Europe, and then I'm
Uh,
in a book club. I mean, okay, it's not as much as I would have hoped, but still, and then I started being more active on Substack.
yes.
And also I learned that, you got to show yourself, you got to be vulnerable. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I put out a post and I think, oh my
Well,
and those ones I get the
yeah.
most comments when I think, "Oh my god, I've really made myself like," but
Yeah.
you've been really a great support because we didn't even know each other,
No.
and I'm taking, I think, a huge risk to write something that
Oh.
I feel so vulnerable, and then you say, "Oh, Deborah, this is beautiful," and I'm like,
No, no, and I mean, so we meet up somehow, right? And you come and ask me, it's like, hey, what about doing something together? Maybe a live, and I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, yes, like I would love to, what I mean, and so you came and voiced, right? You put into voice what you wanted.
with trembling hands.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, okay. But like Substack has taught me something about that process So that in some ways I get the excitement
Mm,
and the fear and trepidation in some combination. And am I going to move forward or am I going to back away?
mm, mm.
Right.
I mean,
Eh,
we were
Yeah.
speaking a little earlier, like what would be my tips for people that are shy.
Yeah.
It's really, we're really learning to deeply listen, that we go a little bit out of our comfort zone, because if we stay only in our comfort zone,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
in the repeating patterns because it
Yes.
keeps us what we know. So if we
Yes. Yes.
want to
Yes. Yes.
grow, we
Yes.
have to come right into a little bit of discomfort.
Mm,
And
yeah. Well,
you judge
yes.
how much of the edge are you willing to go with, right?
No,
Can I?
absolutely.
Yeah. And then you get a little stronger, and our nervous system processes that. Okay, I
Yes.
showed up with alive, and I didn't die, and here I am, still breathing.
Yeah. 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 No, and I love the body work that you do, right, with the singing and the dancing, and so I kind of come to. I mean, I go hiking almost 7 days a week, right,
Wow.
and I didn't come to. I mean, I hike periodically, but it wasn't until the pandemic when my life kind of turned upside down. A lot of people did, and I'm like, I have so many people coming to see me. I can't see any more people. I'm up to here, and I need to do something for my own mental health, right? And so at some point, after a good hiatus, I go back to my own therapy, but I start hiking every day in my lunch break, and I extend my lunch break, and then don't make money to go do the hiking so that my body is able to process and get the serotonin, dopamine into my system, so that I can ease some of my anxiety and continue to work on finding my voice when I'm anxious and nervous, and
Do
kind
you
of.
sing? Do you sing?
I
Well,
don't
it's nice
sing.
hiking in
I
the
did.
winter when it gets
Yeah.
warmer weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
I recommend, using some voicing while you're walking.
Yeah, okay, okay, nice, nice. No, I did some singing, in church choir
Mm,
when I was
mm,
younger. So I've done a little bit, but not a ton. But I do have a sense of, like, if it's warmer,
mm,
like say in the shower or something like there's
right,
something about the humidity or something like I could tell, like, oh, that would be helpful.
right.
And there's something about the dancing, the movement that you write about, but also kind of mention you do that maybe
Yeah,
before here. That can
yeah.
be very helpful. So for me, it's like I sit and I listen
Mhm.
and I look for hear the mind in conflict and work with that. Um, but then somewhere along the way, I got more interested in kind of the body work and movement, and trying to incorporate the mind and body, and then the spirit in some ways too. Another element, um, later in life in certain ways. So it's interesting to me when I find somebody who. Not this is solely what you do, because I think your book has a lot of
Well,
complexity.
it connects these things,
Yes,
because
yes,
I
bingo.
mean, I'm gonna really try to write. I'm finishing one memoir right now, but after that, I'm gonna try to write about something, not anything at all about me. I'm curious if I can do that.
Well, okay.
But
Well,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I did have, I don't know if I mentioned that I found this diary, because I moved
Mm,
to
mm,
Europe,
mm, mm.
we spoke about that, and then I left all my stuff in my mom's basement.
Ah,
And I always was a journaler, so I had like
yeah, yeah.
boxes and boxes of journals and letters, also correspondence with Anais Nin, and you know, wow, pictures, everything. So my mom was going to move, and then went down to the basement and saw that there had been a flood, and everything of mine was covered with mold. My
Oh,
husband and we came, this was before COVID, but we
yeah,
were
yeah.
all dressed in hazmat suits and
Yes.
masks to go through all these moldy boxes of my things, and everything had to be thrown away except one diary. It was very
Oh,
bizarre. One diary was perfect. I don't know
uh,
how that happened.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was like sparkles around it. And that
Yeah.
was the diary of the story of the Leonardo da Vinci piece. And I
No.
was, yeah. And
Ah,
I mean, it wasn't that I had forgotten my whole life, but I didn't remember all the details. And I
yes,
was
yes,
living
yes.
in Berlin, between Berlin and Norway then. And on the plane back to Berlin, it was like 8 hours. I read my own diary. And I
Ah,
was like, even with this professor, this geology professor who was speaking
yeah,
about climate change
yeah,
in
yeah.
1976 in my diary.
Oh,
So
wow, wow,
some of
wow,
that
wow.
stuff informed because then I was like, and then some letters of the
Yes, yes, yes,
character
yes.
who I based Luca on came out of this
Yeah, yeah,
diary. And, I had tried to find this person. I couldn't. I
yeah.
couldn't. And then I
Ah,
thought, okay, I'm going to make up a novel. And I was so curious because, in the old days, I mean, again, those of you who just joined, I'm an
yeah,
oldster, and we didn't have any phone, we didn't have
yeah, yeah,
any
yeah, yeah,
internet, we didn't have any social media. Somebody parted, they parted. You never found them
yeah,
again.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And, I just was so curious what happened. So the weird thing, I was 5 years into writing the novel, and I had a version, an end. This person who I based Luca on
Ah,
contacted me. He found
no.
me. So
Ah,
my first book that was published, he bought it. I don't know how he got it in Italy. That one's called Pandora Learns to Sing. But
okay,
he
okay.
read that book, loved it, found me, and he said, Deborah, I don't know if you ever remember. I don't know why you're in my head. I don't know why. And then I said, I'm writing a book about you. And then we started like a flutter of emails and Skypes, and it was so bizarre because, now, I mean, he was also really old. And
Yeah,
then it was really interesting. So, I didn't know, I mean, we didn't talk so much, and he didn't remember a lot of things. So I still made a lot of it up, but it was very weird. And I finished the draft of the book,
yeah.
and I actually really met him. It was very bizarre.
No, no, I mean, that's such an interesting thing because
When
that's a
life is
pretty,
fiction,
yeah, 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 no, because that's a pretty, that's a pretty poignant part in the book. Right. And I mean, in some ways, yeah, I don't want to, yeah, I'll
well, we
leave that
can't
one
give
alone.
away the end. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, read the book. Read the book. I mean, just so many nice things in it.
But it
Um,
was so bizarre how, for any of you who are writing a book, and, even if, okay, sure, we all want to be like, with the big publishing house. I mean, this is a small publishing house, but even just at a small level where I'm at with
yeah,
this,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
been very interesting.
yeah,
It's like a book starts living,
yes.
and different things start happening, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
really recommend anybody out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've sometimes been addicted to wanting to be big famous, even though with
Mm,
my
mm, mm.
shyness,
Oh, yeah.
and that's a whole other story. But in the meantime, even showing up whichever level we're at. I mean, I don't
Yes.
have that many subscribers. I'm still pretty new at
Mm,
Substack.
mm, mm,
So
mm.
anybody out there, you're welcome. I'm still free.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Join my
sign
Substack.
up. Yeah, go sign up. Go buy your book and go sign up her Substack. Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
well
I
worth
mean,
it.
just
Yeah.
this whole thing, partly Substack and partly, it's almost like there is, we spoke about reality and fantasy, but
Yeah,
there
yes, yes,
is
yes.
kind of elements of magic even within reality.
Yeah, yes. No, no, no.
And
That's the piece, right? There's the adapted piece. Because if you let go of that piece, what do you have?
I can't let go of magic. I can't let go of
No, no. I
magic.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
piece, right? It's like there may be kind of an element that might not conform to a
Yeah.
traditional sense of reality, but sometimes that's the beauty of it. And if you can kind of hang on to kind of the fantasy in terms of kind of what helps us move forward, understand what our dreams and desires are further, can be
Right.
very helpful,
If we
right?
don't beat ourselves that we aren't there yet, which is one of the things that I am working on,
Mm, mm, mm,
that I
mm.
can have, what does Tower Brock say, radical acceptance.
Yes, 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 absolutely. That's a hard concept to wrap our minds around. Yeah, absolutely. Let alone live it out to whatever
Mm,
degree that's even possible,
the
right?
dangerous neighborhood of the mind.
So, so we got a few minutes left. Tell me just maybe a little bit about what you use. You told me some us about some of it already, but tell me a little bit about the self love part. Tell me a little bit about kind of that piece because in my newsletter that I wrote this month, it was Valentine's Day, and so I was like, well, I don't want to write about a relationship other than our relationship with ourselves. Like I'm trying to turn it on its head, and I'm like, all right, so let's look at kind of what my newsletter does. Let's look at the importance of self love in various ways. So tell me a
And
little
this,
bit about how you've tried to.
well, in a way, let's say I'm slow to the club of this because again, it's partly my age. I think in my
Mhm.
time, even though there was this book, like I forget the name of it, one of the famous guru people at the time,
Mm.
like make friends with yourself, or your
Yeah,
own best friend, or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
my mother was reading it, and I was like, dude, what kind of bullshit is that? But it's so true. It's
Yeah.
really true. I mean, self-compassion,
Mm.
this
Yeah.
self-inquiry, and can I let go of my story? I mean, I live in Oslo. The
Mm.
famous playwright Henrik Ibsen, he had this theme
Mm.
of when a person lets go of their life, they let go of their life. It could kill them almost. Like
Yeah.
we really hold to our lifelines. And this is something that, I write about it,
Yes,
and
yes,
yet
yes.
still, oof, so anyone out there, I mean, really, here's my hand to hold because it's not
Yeah.
easy. I
No.
think making friends with ourselves
Yeah.
probably is one of the hardest things, I think.
No,
It really is.
I know, absolutely. It's I think
I
for
mean, really,
me,
I mean, you could
yeah,
fake that you will, but
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
having to find, okay, now I'm doing fine. Now now I feel happy
yeah,
because it went well and I didn't die.
yeah.
And but when I'm having a hard moment, or I have a moment when
Well,
I'm competing, or I see something that triggers me, then
right,
it's more
right, right,
challenging,
right.
right? Then it's like,
Absolutely. No, no. Yeah, yeah, no,
and
no,
that's
that
when
does.
I
Yeah.
have to be the most compassionate.
No, absolutely not. It's a great point. And you mentioned that before. You mentioned a child having some curiosity, right? And so with
Yeah,
children or adults too, but when you begin to play and be curious, the levels of the or cortisol levels begin to change, so that when you play, we're often become less anxious and self-aware. Not always, but a lot of times, if you get into the spirit of the play, it's
yeah,
why play can help us with kind of being less depressed, less
yeah,
anxious in various ways, right?
yeah.
So to kind of like go out, say in nature and sing,
That's
go dance,
beautiful.
right?
Yeah,
If you do
yeah,
that, if you did that kind of on your own, so to speak, that there'd be elements of you communing, nature,
okay.
and kind of elements of what some people would consider healing,
Right, right. I mean, I
but
love to I also dance in group. There's a
yeah,
dance
yeah,
called
yeah.
Five Rhythms or ecstatic
Mm,
dance
mm, mm, mm,
where
mm.
you're in a group where you're on your
Yes.
own dancing. I love that. And some of that I do on my own. I just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, 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 yeah.
sound.
Yeah, I'm very free.
uh,
If I dance, I'm very free form like that.
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
also actually I also do, like here in Spain on Sundays I go and I dance salsa and
yeah, yeah,
bachata
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
kizumba
yeah.
and cha-cha-cha. I still love that stuff.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And I'm really happy because the group here is a real mix from youngsters to oldsters. And, I call it once I'm in the washing machine of like once you're
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
dance where everyone's dancing, I just
Mhm.
keep dancing. I just go to another
Yeah.
partner because, when
Yes, yes,
you're
yes.
at
Yeah.
my tender age, I can't go out of the washing machine and sit down because then I'm done.
Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see, just a few minutes left. So why don't we kind of maybe end on talking a little bit about maybe what you're working on, and I'll just say just a little bit about what I'm working on,
sure,
um,
sure.
and maybe end on
Well,
that note. So tell
yeah,
me a
so
little bit more
maybe
about
we'll just,
yeah, because you're working on a second novel
yeah.
too, I heard, but talk about the
Well,
next.
not this one isn't a novel. This one is a memoir. This is
Okay.
during the COVID year. I'm a little late with it. It's not that much about COVID, but it takes place during that time. We escaped
Mhm.
Norway in a camper and we came down to live in the south of Italy, in Puglia and in Sicily. And the
Oh,
towns were completely like the old towns where usually there's a billion tourists.
yeah,
There was
yeah.
nobody because of COVID. So the book is called Italy with Nobody in
Italy with
it.
nobody in it. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my mom had just passed away.
Oh,
And as I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't have such an easy growing up. So in death, my mother was really present. I know that can sounds very
No,
woo-woo,
no,
but it was, I mean, my
yeah,
father, when he died, he was gone. He was really gone. But my mom,
yeah,
she
yeah,
really hung around. She was curious. She did yoga with me. My mother never did yoga.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
doing like online yoga.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
it's so the book is some about working through a relationship with her and improving the relationship with myself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, no, you want
So
to
I'm working
internalize
on
those.
this theme a lot. I'm
Nice.
working on this theme a lot.
No,
So
good, good. No,
next year when we meet again for
yeah, yeah,
live, I'll
absolutely.
have that
Yeah.
book and we could share
Amen.
more and maybe I will have come further in this journey of self-love, you know.
Nice, nice, nice. No,
So
amen,
Valentine's
amen.
Day, I mean, I'm happily married and I'm very happy for
Yeah,
that. But I see that the better we are,
yeah, yeah.
in
No,
how I
absolutely.
am with myself, how he is with himself, it makes it
Yes.
better how we are together. Really.
No, it makes sense. You got to. I mean, that's the interesting thing, right? Because as far as health and well-being, it's like the number one kind of indicator out there as far as what the science shows is it's warm, caring connection with other
Right.
people, right? But on the flip side of that, it's like put your put your what is it? It's like the plane's going down and you got to put your oxygen mask on first, right? And then you put the child's on. It's like to me, it's like it doesn't make sense. I want to but you got to do the self loving thing in some fashion, and
You
then
do.
move out. And so I like in a dance, right? I like the movement between self and then other. It's like I got to dance on my own, out in nature on my own. And if I can do that and be happy and help with the self esteem, self worth, and then go out into public and interact with other individuals, um, I like the movement back and forth between the two because I've often had a little bit of a harder time with the individual self love piece. And so for me in my Substack, I haven't. It's my. I don't know if it'll come out in like 2, 3, 4 weeks. I'm not quite sure, but I'm working on a piece on longing. So it has some tie with fantasy, right? So it has to do with longing
Right.
and grappling with what we do not have yet, but what we have not got, right? And that kind of juxtaposition of I'm longing for something, and yet I'm not able to get something or don't
Well, I'm
have it.
certain. I mean, the novel we were talking about,
Yeah,
I certainly wrote a lot about.
absolutely. No, absolutely. So when you start talking about fantasy, I'm like, oh, that's like you said, like that's
Yeah,
one of the things that I'm kind of starting to play around with in an article
yeah.
that and again put out probably 3, 4 weeks or something,
I mean, one of the
of
things
that sort.
I'm trying to work on now is that, to not be living so much in the past, to start being
Yes,
a
yes,
little
yes.
bit more here and now. It's still challenging. Still, I mean,
What?
especially being older, like there's so much to look back on now. And then
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
I want to
Absolutely.
still be here. I want to still be present. I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
want to be, no, like smelling the flowers, not like, oh, I've smelled the flowers before. I don't have to smell them
Yes,
again.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
they might smell differently today. Smell the flowers.
No,
Feel the
no,
air.
it's very yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yeah, and so it's just an interesting thing, right? Like what you just hit upon it is like as we age, we all carry dynamics more that we've had history with us, and are we able to kind of understand how to work with some of that, and yet, as we talked about earlier, weave that into something new, or at least connect up with something that might be older in a new way, at least,
Yeah.
right?
And if I can leave you and your listener that, and then still also be in like beginner's mind,
Oh,
that I don't
yes,
have
yes,
to know it
yes, yes.
all yet, that I could
Yes.
be, I know
Well,
nothing.
and to me, that connects back to that child then that you talked about earlier in terms of the being curious about something and wanting to learn and just you got to come at it from being okay with that, the beginner's mind, and appreciate loving it to whatever degree. Yeah, that's nice.
So this was wonderful. I'm so happy, and I still want to learn from you because I'm still, like Substack. I'm still writing a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm really. But you seem to be enjoying my Substacks, right? And I kind of
Absolutely.
question, I investigate things. So again, I have to meet with the algorithm so it could branch out a bit more. That I don't have to only be my brand because I have a
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
resistance
yeah, yeah.
to
Yeah, no,
only
but
being one
that's good
brand.
then. No, that's good then. You mean in some ways, you talk about the various different interests that you've had that kind of helped, kind of with depth and complexity. And my, one option, right, is to kind of just write about those various different parts.
I
And
mean,
then, and then you're, and then,
I stay with the theme, like the well-being and being healthy and our breath and our voice and movement.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And once in between, you know, I can't help a little bit of what's going on in the world around us, so
Mm, mm,
a little
mm,
bit of that.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. We got through the hour.
Yeah, we did, we did, we
Bronze?
did, we did.
How do you pronounce your name? Bronze?
Bronze,
Bronze.
bronze.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, this
yeah.
was, thank you so much. This was really
You know,
a joy.
I appreciate you, and it's been a joy. And again, I loved your book. And do yourselves a favor out there. Go sign up for Deborah's Substack. Go buy that
Okay.
book. I mean, just the complexity of the characters and the grief, loss, love.
Yeah. So thank you.
Nice.
So we'll
So
stay in
we
touch.
will be in touch soon. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Big hug
And yes, exactly. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy yourself.
and
Be safe.
happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
Enjoy.
Valentine's Day, everyone. Enjoy yourselves.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.